In 1977, artist Shigeko Kubota predicted that the prevalence of video technology would lead people to say, "I video, therefore I am," instead of "I think, therefore I am." Her artwork in the 70s and 80s were the first to combine video with elements of the natural world, let alone sculptural form. And through her artwork, she kind of developed this visual language that examined how video was both a tool for self-distancing as well as a tool for extreme self-examination. Viewing Kubota's work made me reflect on my initial experience with video. In 2006, my mom bought me a flip video camera, which for those of you who remember are those really tiny video cameras that connected directly to your computer. And upon receiving this gift, I was immediately enamored with recording myself. I found it almost magical to watch myself back as an objective third party, almost as if I was separating from myself and creating a little piece of myself that was immortalized digitally. This phenomenon of self-distancing in tandem with self-examination is one that's permeated its way into all of our lives. It's even magnified through the existence of social media. And I wanted to kind of dive into that today. I've always felt a compulsion to post online, but often that compulsion is met with this intense hollow feeling, and I've always wondered why I feel both of those things in tandem. Writer Gia Tolentino puts it in a good way, where she describes our personhood as the last natural resource that the internet, capital I, is extracting, exploiting, and selling. That extraction, in tandem with our innate human desire to be understood and loved, is what leads us to give up our personhood freely on the internet, or for money if we're lucky, but more often than not, we're just giving it up freely. For me, posting online has always felt like this weird twilight zone, and in response to that weird feeling, people have always lauded digital authenticity as being the best way to appear online, and audiences crave authenticity. But what does authenticity online even mean? To reference Gia Tolentino again, she describes being online as a constant performance with no backstage, and this idea comes from the sociological perspective of Irving Goffman, who views all of our micro interactions as different performances. And these performances are divided into different roles, where we have the actor, that's ourselves, the audience, which is the people we are performing for, front stages, and backstage. The basis of this perspective is that all of our human interactions are dependent upon time, place, and audience, and that different parts of our persona come out in different contexts. The TLDR of this perspective is that everything is a performance, but that's not to say that what we do in our day-to-day lives is inauthentic or that it's not sincere, but rather kind of how we shift ourselves in different contexts of our life. To further clarify what the difference between front stage and backstage is, front stages are places in which you and I have to conform to social norms. So you can think of this as work, as school, as places that you grocery shop, whereas backstage is a place where social norms no longer affect us. We can kind of relax and take off our costume, disregard our lines. So to go back to Gia Tolentino's statement about existence online being all front stage, no backstage, with an ever-growing audience, this can feel exhausting to say the least. One of my favorite artists, Maya Man, also kind of views online performance in a more absurdist way. In one of her collections called Fake It Till You Make It, she satirizes popular Instagram wellness accounts, and she created 700 algorithmically produced, pastel painted, kind of defunct affirmation posts. And this is all to kind of poke fun and lean into the irony and the inherent silliness of being online. The crux of Maya Man's work is about the performance of self online and how we form identity around the things that we consume. With this constant performance, we also bring monetization into the mix. And the trap of the internet is that the surface layer is built around individualizing affirmation, which leans into our inherent need to be understood and loved as people. But the shadow layer underneath is built on deep depersonalization and existential strip mining. Big tech is hollowing out all of the information that we give to these social platforms, placing us in neat consumer boxes and selling it to other companies who then make us feel poorly about ourselves so that we buy more products. And in turn, on top of buying more products, we then create identities around our consumption, cueing in all of the TikTok aesthetics, all of these rapid fire trends, and hyper-consumerism that we see on digital platforms today. This is a simplified explanation of the shadow layer of the internet, but you get the idea. Additionally, monetizing our personhood seems to be the new American dream, where it promises an escape from being a cog in the corporate hellscape to being an individual workhorse in the digital hellscape. And in no way am I demonizing monetizing yourself online. That's exactly what I'm trying to do, as well as a lot of other people. However, I think it's worthwhile to examine our relationship with monetizing ourselves and the effect it has on our sense of self. Creating a transactional relationship with the internet can feel exploitative in nature. I think this stems from algorithms flattening our interest as a whole and this constant chase for virality in short form content. So you might be asking yourself at this point of the video, how do we escape the hellscape? And if you want to exist online without feeling like you've sold your soul, I've come up with a few strategies that might help you mediate your digital existential dread until the world implodes or until we build a better internet. The first is to treat your social platforms like a stage, because that's exactly what they are. What would you be comfortable sharing with an in-person audience versus what would you be willing to share for a digital audience? I think it's really easy to depersonalize your digital audience and think that because you're oversharing to a faceless amount of people with infinite interchangeable numbers, that you tend to lean into sharing too much of your personhood that you wouldn't normally be comfortable sharing with an in-person audience. So this boundary line is really up to you, but I think it's important to not self-betray in the name of attention. The second is to remember that attention is power and attention is very personal. So again, with the note of re-personalizing your audience and not just viewing your social audience as a mere number, but thinking of them as individual people that desire value for their own lives and providing that value to your audience. And rather than treating your personhood like a commodity that you freely give away, I think it's important to lean into specific skills or specific information that you have that you're able and comfortable to share with your audience. The third one that I'm still practicing is to try not to mistake representations of life with real life and to set boundaries with your digital space. In my opinion, I think the internet really magnifies a lot of our more intense emotions like rage, like happiness. This magnification of feeling can lull us into inaction, into complacency, and into doom scrolling. For myself, to set this boundary more firmly, I downloaded the Freedom app, which is actually something I saw in a Gia Tolentino interview. And it basically is this app that allows me to set time constraints as to when certain social apps are unavailable to me. This has really helped. I've only been using it for a couple days, and I think it's improved how much time I spend on social media, and also it's made me realize how often I reach for social media just as an instinctive habit to kind of like quiet my brain when I'm doing something like washing dishes or going to the bathroom, stuff like that. So I think setting that boundary has helped me kind of free myself, and also as like a quiet protest against the companies that are selling my data. I'm just providing less data for them to sell. I'm still in the process of understanding how to move forward digitally while still keeping my personhood intact, but people like Gia Tolentino, like Maya Man, like Shigeru Kubota have really shifted my perspective and reframed my thinking when it comes to what role my digital space plays in my everyday life. And as our digital and physical worlds continue to converge, I think it's important to self-interrogate and to examine our relationship with new technology and our digital space. I am super interested in Web3 social media platforms, and I may do a video on that in the future, so let me know if that's something that interests you as well. But if you've made it this far in the video, that's all I have for you today. I want to thank you for your time and attention. Attention is powerful, attention is very personal, so I'm very thankful that you've loaned me even the smallest bit of yours. Our community here has grown again, so I wanted to thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers. That's insane. I still imagine all of you in an auditorium listening to me speak, and I hope anything I've said has provided you even a minute amount of value. But I encourage you to examine your own relationship with your digital space. I encourage you to log off a little more often, and yeah. I have short hair now also. That's kind of a new thing. Anyway, I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.